Hey guys, welcome to the Mystic Path. This is just going to be a quick chit chat on spiritual bypassing. Okay, let's talk about it. Because, and I think Watson wants to join us. Come on, Bubba. You coming? Gonna come up? He's looking like he's about to jump up on the table. So full disclaimer, Watson may join us for the spiritual bypassing talk. Okay, so I've felt guided to do this. Come on, buddy. There we go. There he is. This is a good topic, huh? You want to be a part of it? You want to be a part of it? Okay, come on. Lay down here. Lay down here. Say hello. Okay, don't get so close. Back up, back up. Say hello to everyone. Very nice, very nice. Watson's got good healing energy, so anybody watching this video, we're all benefiting from his loving healing, aren't we, Bubba? Yes. Yes. I'm sorry he's so close. It's hilarious. Okay, come on, Bub. Good boy. Okay, so I've been feeling guided lately to make this video. I'm finally doing it on spiritual bypassing because it's happening a lot in the New Age community and just in humanity in general, right? I did a new moon video, new moon in Cancer. It should also be up here soon. And a lot kind of came out about spiritual bypassing. We have a lot of people, a lot of humans on the planet that are ignoring their shadow side. Okay? And if you look at the collective as a whole, I kind of talked about this a little bit in the last video, that humans in general have been spiritual bypassing for thousands of years, right? Because it's difficult to face our shadow sometimes. And nobody wants to have to face their flaws, their shortcomings. Nobody wants to take ownership and self-responsibility for that stuff, because that stuff is hard, right? It's hard to face the shortcomings we have. It's hard to face our shadow. So a lot of people just don't. And unfortunately, you can see as a whole, if you look globally, how there's been so much chaos, so much turmoil. That's pretty much because for thousands of years, the majority of humanity has not been doing their shadow work and not been healing themselves. So the issue is now we have a whole lot of toxic humans on the planet. And all of those toxic humans avoiding their work and avoiding their shadows and their healing are, keeping the vibration of the planet down. So that's partially why we had this global pandemic. Spiritually, one of the spiritual reasons for it is that humans have been ignoring the shadow aspects of themselves as individuals and as a whole. Okay? So think about what happened last year when the pandemic started. The whole entire globe. Oh, Bubba. Yes, you're so cute. We see you. You're so cute. You just want to be the center star, don't you, today? The center star. I don't know if you can hear his purring, but it's quite loud. Anyway, so basically, for thousands of years, humans have been ignoring the shadow side of things on an individual level and on a collective level. Okay, so let's just talk about the collective level for a second. Humans as a whole carry a vibration, all of us together, right? And it doesn't matter. Like, I could be a very high vibration person and there's a person standing next to me that's a very low vibration person. Like, our energies will average out and balance together. And so then my vibration will be lowered and theirs will be higher a little bit, right? So that we can find this common ground, this common vibration. So that's kind of what happens globally as a whole of humans. And what's happened is for thousands and thousands of years, humans weren't doing their shadow work because it's hard, it's difficult. And nobody wants to face the worst of themselves, right? And so because nobody individually is facing their shadows and doing their work, then when you add all those individuals not doing their work up together, right, that creates a giant collective of humans that don't have a high vibration. So if you have, let's just say 10% of people doing their work and healing, and their vibrations are raising, but you have 90% of people that are not doing their work and they're very low vibration. So then you have a collective, right? That like these higher people get pulled down lower in the main collective because the main energy is gonna be the more focused priority, right? And if the majority of people are low vibration and unconscious, then we're going to be living in a reality, right, that's low vibration and unconscious. And so that's what's been going on for thousands and thousands of years. And we have basically been, I'm sorry, my God, you're so adorable. He just gave me the cutest look. I don't know if you could see it, but he was giving me this look like, that's what's happening? That's crazy. Like he's listening and my words were profound. You're so cute, bub. So anyway, if you think about the collective as a whole, and I'm in America, so I will talk probably a lot about the American collective, but you can kind of apply it to the full globe, right? But like, for example, what happened last year? The whole entire globe, right, got put on lockdown. And because there's a pandemic and we didn't really know what we were dealing with at first. So everybody kind of had to shelter in place and stay at home. So for several reasons. So that one, the scientists had time to research and study and see what it was we were actually dealing with. And two, so that the healthcare workers in the healthcare systems around the globe would not get overwhelmed and break down. And so we went on this like global shelter in place, lockdown, whatever you want to call it, for a couple of months in 2020 for those reasons, right? So that the scientists could learn as much as they could and we would know what we were up against and they could start developing treatments or whatever. And also so that we didn't put a strain on the healthcare systems to where they broke because, listen, if all the healthcare workers can't help you, then we're really in trouble, right? So we locked everything down so that they could get prepared, they could get all the supplies they needed, they could deal with the surgence of patients they already had without a bunch of more patients coming in. So that's why that happened in the reality aspect, right? But in the spiritual aspect, the reason that happened was to force humans, like I joke that the universe put us in timeout. Humans have been ignoring their shadows and not doing their mental health and emotional work for centuries, decades, millennia. And because nobody's been doing their work, that's why society was getting more and more chaotic. If you look at the last 20 years globally and whatever your country is, and in my country in America, you can see over the last 20 years how things have spiraled out of control, right? Like in America, for example, we didn't have school shootings in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 60s. No, of course not. But in the mid-90s, we started having school shootings. And then from the mid-90s now to the 2020s, not only are we having school mass shootings, we're having mass shootings just at entertainment events, at concerts, at whatever. The grocery store, we've been having, like, I don't know, last year there were a couple at the grocery store where somebody just walked into a grocery store and started shooting everyone up. So, think about that. Like, there were none. Then in the 90s, there were a few. Then in the early 2000s, there were more. And then in the 2010 to 2020, there was just nothing but shootings, one after the other, right? It's like sometimes there'd be a shooting, and then 3 days later, there'd be another shooting somewhere else. So you can see how in the collective over the last 20 years, things have been spiraling downward, spiraling more into chaos, more into turmoil. And the messages I get when I ask my spiritual team about this is, okay, Bubba, sorry, he's moving the camera. Sorry, Bubba, back up. You can't rub on the camera, Bubba. You'll knock it over. Silly boy. Anyway, so what I was saying is you can see where over time, over the last 30, 40 years, it's slowly been spiraling down into more and more chaos. And that's because when you don't do your shadow work and you don't deal with your mental and your emotional issues, like those traumas just get worse and worse and more ingrained, right? And then when you multiply, that's for one person. So, like, I just know from experience, in the past, when I was not doing my shadow work, I wasn't in therapy, I wasn't, like, trying to better myself and learn and grow, my life seemed more and more challenging, right? And the less I did my work, the more challenging things got. And again, that's because your soul knows what it wants to be and what path it wants to be on. And let's say that's this is your soul path. And then we have our human brain who kind of sometimes takes over and is like, no, I've decided I'm going to be on this other path and I'm going to control everything. And I've decided this is what I'm doing. And a lot of times what happens is you get on that path, and the more you go down that path, the more chaotic and tumultuous and challenging things become. And that's because your soul is trying to tell you, this is not the right path. I don't want to be over here. I want to be over here, right? I want to be over here where the path is easier. And the path is easier when you do your work, when you address your mental and emotional health issues, and when you do your shadow work and start integrating and loving those shadow aspects of yourself, then you grow and heal. And then as you grow and heal, right? So then this path is a lot easier to navigate because you're doing it from your soul, you're doing it from your heart. Whereas this path is your head, and it's more about control and ego. And so sometimes we get on that ego path and things just get worse and worse and worse for us. And we don't understand why. Why is this so hard? Why? Like, I used to say that a lot in my 20s. Why is this so hard? Why is my life so much more difficult than other people? And now I understand it's because I was not on the right path. And my soul and my higher self and source energy and my guides and the universe, it was trying to get me on the right path. And so, okay, what are you doing, dude? Oh, he's playing. He's playing with the paper. Okay, so what happens is this path gets harder and harder and more challenging because your guides, your higher self, and source want you to move over here, okay? This is the right path. And we're going to make this ego path as difficult as we can for you because it's not the right way. So this is just going to get harder and harder and harder and more tumultuous and more challenging and more chaotic to get you to move, right? The point is, the reason we get triggered a lot and the reason our life goes into chaos, think about the collective as a whole. Think about probably 2015 to 2021. Think about how chaotic that time was. And I know in America, especially, it was very chaotic. We had a crazy demagogue get elected. He started indulging and stoking the energies that are the worst energies there are in humanity, right? Racism, judgment, greed, corruption. Like this demagogue embodied all of those things, and not only did he embody them, he was promoting them to everyone and telling everyone, indulge in those worst qualities of yourself. Punch people if you disagree with them. Fight them, And so he was stoking these fires. So this is a perfect example of how the universe was trying to get the collective to wake up and move, right? The way we've been doing things is not working because things keep getting more and more chaotic. Things keep getting worse and worse, right? So the reason for that is because things get worse and worse and more uncomfortable because that's not the proper path. So they want everyone to move. Let's move over to this proper, more harmonious, more loving path. And the only way that they can get us to move is by pretty much making us miserable, challenging us, triggering us. Because the reason they do that is those things are there so that they can come up so that we can deal with them. And we can deal with them and we can face them and we can accept them and love them and integrate them. Okay? So think about that. Think about things in society were getting more and more chaotic, more and more. And then all of a sudden 2020 happens and we are hit with a pandemic. And the whole entire globe is forced into shelter in place. Okay? And what happened while we were sheltering in place? Well, I can tell you, in America, it was crazy chaos. George Floyd was murdered. There were all kinds of crazy riots. Half of the country was on fire because of climate change. There was just a lot of crazy stuff going on. I could sit here, we could name it all day. It would take us all day. So I'm just obviously just briefly mentioning those things. But that happened because we've all been spiritual bypass. Humanity as a whole has been spiritual bypassing for thousands and thousands of years. And as you see, my throat chakra is acting up right now because this is not information that everyone wants out there. So it's like there are some negative energies and entities working to try to close up my throat chakra so I can't share some of this spiritual information. Oh, funny. Not funny, but. So basically, for thousands and thousands of years, humans and humanity has just been avoiding doing any spiritual work, avoiding facing our darkest qualities, our most, I don't want to say, because again, there's no good or bad. Things just are. So I'm trying to I don't want my humanness to be like our bad qualities, right? Because things just are. So we all have things about ourselves, shortcomings, let's call them shortcomings, negative aspects of our life, fears that keep us stuck or guide us in the wrong direction, right? And all of those things create our shadow. And if we're not facing those triggers and those shadow aspects and those shortcomings, then what's happening is that energy just grows and grows and grows and grows, right? And so you can kind of see how this is why, like, 2020 was like a breaking point for humanity. Anything and everything that could go wrong was going wrong all at the exact same time, and we were all sheltering in place, so we were forced to sit and watch it. Right? So what I was saying all through 2020 is the universe has had enough of humans ignoring their work. And the whole reason we're here is Earth is a school, right? We're here to understand duality and grow and better ourselves as a soul. And nobody's been doing that. Basically, for thousands and thousands of years, humans have been here on Earth and been like, oh, we're here for a vacation to just do whatever we want and have as much fun as we want. And that, in a nutshell, is spiritual bypassing, okay? Because it's uncomfortable to face those things, so we're just going to ignore them, right? Like, I can remember in the 80s when I was growing up, if the topic of racism would come up, the adults all would immediately be like, well, I wasn't born then, so I didn't do it, so I don't have to deal with it. That is spiritual bypassing. Okay? Not acknowledging, not dealing with, not healing a pattern or a paradigm in society that is very negative like that, that is spiritual bypassing. When you know it's an issue and you know that there are still people hurting because of that issue, and you know that it's something that needs to be faced and dealt with, but you're just not doing it, that's spiritual bypassing. Okay? Waking up, like the other day, I woke up in a bad mood. I come from a family that's very pessimistic. I was programmed very pessimistic, very much from lack. The world is out to get you. You can't trust anyone. There's nothing positive in this world. You just have to wait long enough and somebody will screw you over. Okay? That's how I was programmed. And I've had to work the last 15 years. That's a shadow aspect of myself, pessimism, right? So I've had to work really hard the last 15 years to work on that and grow and try to heal it and to not be so pessimistic and to try to view the world more neutrally, right? So that's a shadow aspect of myself. That's something I know that I need to work on. That's something that has come up a lot in my life over the last 40 years, right? And that's something I'm still working on healing. And when that pessimism comes up, like the other day, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed and I needed to heal. I knew instantly, I'm feeling very pessimistic this morning. This is a very pessimistic, lack-based energy, okay? Now, spiritual bypassing would be if I felt that and then I said to myself, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to push it to the side and put on happy music and get myself into a happier mood. Okay? That's spiritual bypassing. Because you're not actually dealing with it. You're pushing it to the side and shifting into a happier energy. Okay? You're not actually healing with, dealing with, or integrating that shadow aspect when you do that. Okay? So we need to kind of stop all this spiritual bypassing. So the way I dealt with it was not spiritual bypassing. I noticed what was happening. I was like, okay, I noticed, oh my gosh, I'm being very pessimistic. This is a very pessimistic thought pattern. My apologies for my timer going off in the background. That's my lunch. So I noticed it. I'm feeling very pessimistic. I'm feeling very negative. I'm feeling this lack-based energy and thought patterns come into my reality. So then I took a quick step back and observed it. Okay? I didn't judge myself. I didn't shame myself. I didn't beat myself up. I said, all right, this energy is here. I know this is a programmed pattern that is not positive for me and that causes me challenges in my life. So I'm going to just accept this is a part of me. This is an aspect of who I am. This is not all of who I am. And this does not mean that I will always have this pessimistic programming to deal with. Okay? So that was step 2. Then I asked myself, okay, what was I doing before I went to bed last night that might have shifted me into this pessimistic mindset, right? So then I started analyzing. What was I doing that might have put me in this mindset? What was I thinking? What was I saying to myself? What was I watching? What was I reading? Okay? Because all of those things can have a effect, right? So then I started analyzing. Then once I started analyzing and kind of figuring out, okay, this is just a family pattern that has always been around and it comes back every now and then when I'm not feeling at my best, right? And I had not been feeling at my best. I'd had a couple of nights of not really great sleep. So I was feeling vulnerable, right? And so, of course, that's when these shadow aspects come up, when we're not feeling our best. So I did all that, right? I noticed it, I observed it, I analyzed it, and then I accepted it. This is just a shadow aspect of who I am. This is not all of who I am. This is not who I will always be. And this is an energy that does not have to be permanent in my life. Okay? And then once I accepted that this, with no judgment, no shame, no beating myself up, no guilt, no whatever, then I noticed about 10 minutes later, I was feeling much lighter and I was feeling in a much better mood, and I wasn't having all this pessimism and pessimistic thoughts, right? So because I took a moment and went through those steps and dealt with the energy and the aspect that came forward, I healed it in that moment and was able to shift into a happier, better place. Now, that's different than saying, I'm going to push this energy aside because I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to admit that I'm pessimistic. I don't like that part of it. Because listen, I don't like that part of myself. But whether I like it or not, it is here and it is part of me. So it's better to embrace it and love yourself no matter what. All right? Because when you can embrace it and love yourself no matter what, that's when the healing actually happens, and you can actually raise your vibration and shift into a happier thing. So, that's a lot different than when that came up, me being like, oh, I'm afraid of this aspect of myself. I don't like it. I'm afraid of it. I'm going to push it over here and just turn on happy music and pretend this didn't happen. Okay? One is spiritual bypassing. One is spiritual healing. All right? So they wanted me to talk about this because we have a lot of humans on the planet still that are spiritual bypassing. And right now in particular, the energies are wonderful for dealing with these shadow aspects of ourselves, embracing them, healing them, releasing them, and moving forward on a healthier, happier path. Okay? So what I was saying before is about the collective. Like what I just described to you is healing on an individual level. And because I'm doing my healing on an individual level, right, I'm a happier, healthier person. My vibration is higher than it would have been if I had ignored that and pushed it aside. And so if every human was doing their work and we're all making little shifts and raising a little bit, imagine how wonderful that could be for the human collective as a whole, right? But part of the reason the human collective as a whole is in such utter and total chaos is because nobody's doing their individual work. And so when you have a whole bunch of broken people, when you bring them all together to create a collective whole, now you have a big collective whole that is broken and unhealed, right? But if each individual within this whole is doing their work, then eventually the priority vibrational energy field will be happier because all of these people are doing their work. And then when you add all these people up doing their work, that raises everyone up as a whole, right? But if you only have one person in this whole doing their work and all the rest of this whole is spiritually bypassing, then there's no chance at all of raising the collective up. Okay? So I want to go back really quickly and then we're going to wrap it up. But what I was talking about before is this is what the pandemic was about. Is the pandemic put the entire globe, I said, the universe is so sick and tired of the humans not doing their shadow work that she's put everyone in timeout. And so that's kind of how I viewed it. The universe has had enough. There are new energies coming into the planet that from the other side of the galaxy that have not been seen in thousands and thousands of years. And we as humans now are being forced. We need to face ourselves. We cannot keep avoiding our shadows. We cannot keep avoiding our mental and emotional health work. Okay? We have to be doing these things because look around. As we can see, society is in turmoil and chaos because nobody's doing their work. So now we have a collective of very low vibration, broken people. But if we could get more and more of us to do the work, then more and more of us will be awakened and healthy, right? And then that becomes infectious. And then as a whole, we all start rising up our vibration because we're individually doing our work, right? You can't help the whole until you can individually heal yourself. You can't heal the whole until you can heal yourself. So it's basically, we're at a time now, this age of Aquarius, no more spiritual bypassing. No more ignoring and running from ourselves. It is time to face our shortcomings, face our flaws, face our habits and qualities and patterns and things about ourselves we don't like so much. But by facing them, doing what I explained, right? Doing all the steps that I talked about, that will help us heal those shadows. And then as we start to heal those shadows, then we all become healthier and happier people. And then when you have a whole planet full of healthy, happy people doing their work, then you have a big giant collective of healthy, happy people, right? And then society wouldn't be so chaotic. Because society is basically a reflection of what's going on in our insides. And if you look around right now, society's a little bit crazy. And that's partially because nobody, for thousands of years, nobody's been doing their work. And they wanted me to do this video to explain, first of all, what spiritual bypassing is. Spiritual bypassing is just a Band-Aid. It doesn't solve anything. It does not heal anything. It puts a Band-Aid on it and puts it over there, and we'll deal with it later. But then what ends up happening is nobody comes back to deal with it later. So then that Band-Aid, under that Band-Aid, that wound festers and becomes infection and then grows and becomes gross, right? Because we didn't deal with it in the moment. We put a Band-Aid on it and pushed it to the side, and then we ignored it. And then it got infected. And now it's this big, gross, pussy wound that is going to need a lot more attention now than if we had just given it the proper attention in the moment to heal it properly. Is that making sense? I hope that's making sense. So I'm going to leave it here. One thing they kind of wanted me to leave this before we go is to say, let's just remember, in everything in life, in ourselves, in the world around us, in everything, there is a shadow side and a light side. And we will get nowhere by only focusing on the light side. And that's literally what's been happening for like the last 20,000 years. People are just focusing on the light, ignoring the shadow, pushing it over here. When what needs to happen is like the yin and the yang. There's a little bit of light in the shadow, there's a little bit of shadow in the light. And then those two things come together to create a balanced whole, right? So that's what we need to be focusing on now as humans. It is time for us to grow individually and collectively. It is time for us to level up. It is time for us to be better and do better. And the only way out of this mess is through it. And the only way through it is to face it and heal it. Okay? You cannot push it to the side, put a Band-Aid on it, and then expect that we're going to be a happy, healthy group. All right? So I hope this made sense. I hope this helped. If you want some more in-depth talk about spiritual bypassing, I talked a lot about it in the last video I just did, the new moon in Cancer, July 2021. So you can check out that video as well. I hope this helped. I hope this gave you a little bit more insight into what we're being urged to do right now, individually and as a whole. Okay? So, okay, I'm going to leave it there. I hope this helped. I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day, week, weekend, whatever this is for you. I'm wishing you lots of love and light, strength and bravery for moving forward and facing and moving through your shadow aspects.